orphan, and you'll help support a vulnerable child to have the education they've always dreamed of, so they can build a brighter future. You'll be feeding a hungry stomach and a hungry mind with knowledge that will last them a lifetime. That's the power of an education. Sponsor an orphan now with Islamic Relief.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. I'm Preacher Mars, host of the SOS, the Shout Out Show. Hope that you're having a tremendous Wednesday. We all know that today is hump day. If you get over this day, you just got Thursday and Friday, and you know nobody works on Friday. So listen, shout out to the Bethel family, shout out to the Samuels family, shout out to the Cave family, everybody that convened in Danville and celebrated my homegoing for my Aunt Shirley. Peace and blessings for that. And I just kind of wanted to take a moment again to emphasize that we need to send out prayers to Sister Roberta Flack, who was diagnosed with ALS. It's a very sensitive thing. Power and prayer to you and your family. Today's subject, brothers and sisters, is not necessarily about politics. It's about position. Oftentimes, when we look at politics, it is about the gathering of power, if you will, or even more, the collection of power in the effort to get more power. Last night, we saw a little bit of history. Not since Roosevelt or Grover Cleveland have we had a president who lost and tried to get reelected. And it was interesting. Excuse me for my voice. It was interesting because I began to see some cracks, if you will. Not in the established understanding of people of color towards politics, but people of non-color towards politics in this new paradigm whereby they understand that the emperor has no clothes, but they keep looking at the emperor hoping that clothes are going to jump on them. Our whole economics, whether you understand or not, is based upon people at the top echelons of power in the United States presenting a picture of stability. We haven't had that before Joe Biden. Before Joe Biden, we would have, of course, Obama, we'd have Bush, we'd have Reagan, but they adhered to a set of rules whereby there was decorum, whereby there was a space to have an argument, even if you didn't disagree, or even if you didn't agree or you disagree, there was a space and a way to do it. And it was framed by aspects of what a democracy looks like, and it's also framed by constitutional process. So for the last some years, we have not had that. And it's not Donald Trump's fault. Let me say that. It's not Donald Trump's fault. It's the fear of Donald Trump that allowed people to somehow back away from accountability. And at the same time, the allure that if you went along with the scheme, you could achieve power too. Now, the midterms are done. The Democrats are going to hold the Senate. I also believe they're going to win in Georgia. One office is going to hold off Herschel Walker. The House is going to go to the Republicans. I've said that before, but it wasn't a bloodbath we were expecting. What it means, because it's so close and the margin is kind of thin, what it means is that there has to be a space for compromise, whereby the bludgeoning that people have been taking for the last several years is not there. And you know, that velvet glove over that fist, if you will, is no longer there. And it's not a fist, it's two hands. We have to look at what power looks like, what power is going to look like moving forward. So today's show, I want to kind of dissect a little bit of that, but I also want to bring into it where we could benefit. Where are our strong points in a situation when a system breaks down and the power has to be realigned? How do you realign yourself with power? Do you do it with economics? Yesterday we talked about the spiritual narrative. Do you strengthen your spirit to be able to, let's say, withstand some of the things that are coming towards you? Is it a re-education about the educational process or the political process? Or even more so important, are we able to realign ourselves in terms of our economic opportunities moving forward? There's a thing that says in war, people make money. In poverty, people make money. In death, people make money. And laughter, in any emotion, brothers and sisters, any action, somebody's making money or somebody's getting power. We're going to talk about that here on the Shout Out Show today. Bear with my voice is a little bit off, but I think it's important that we begin to assert ourselves, not just in these conversations, but begin the process of having our own conversations. Barring political malfeasance and things, we have a voice. And as we move into the 2024 elections, I think Mr. Gregory is correct that we can build the voice, even if it's not a political action committee that's built on money and funding candidates. You can have a political action committee that's built on the fact that there's a mandate, that we have specific ideas and specific, I want to say, postulates that we want to have addressed before we give you our vote. This is really interesting. I'm going to be back when I start the show. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. This is Shout Out Show with Preacher Moss. Let's roll. All right, and we're back. Without further ado, let me introduce our Shout Out Show family and Shout Out Show land, brothers and sisters, the family, the soldiers, if you will, that make this possible, this platform possible. So let me shout out. Of course, we got Sister Ree. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sister Ree. Peace and blessings to you, Derek, and of course, Brother Juwan. Looking forward to talking to you soon. Hope you're doing well and your health is good. Next up, we want to shout out, of course, our Canadian envoy to the show. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my man, Altaf Rashid from Canada, our Canadian envoy to the show. Mr. 6 o'clock, straight up, straight down, always in the house with him. Much love to you, my brother. Next up, Roberto Rashid. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brother. We're hoping this is a beneficial topic, man. Thank you so much for dropping in. Spend some time with us. And you can always, when you come in the Shout Out Show, man, the rug is always out. The welcome mat is always out. You are a Shout Out Show family. So thank you for coming in. Next up, my man, Eric Carter. What's going on, beloved? Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brother. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate you. My little brother, his government name is Johnny L. Thomas, but to me, he's always going to be JT. What's going on, beloved? Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good to see you in the house. Appreciate you. Next up, Big Brother Bilal Salahuddin and his queens, Sister Sonia Dalton Salahuddin, checking in with us. What's going on, beloved? Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Appreciate you, man. And I don't know if you're watching with the queen or not, but if you're not, give her a hug and tell her, hey, we're looking forward to being on the show, all right? And, of course, this program does not get off, brothers and sisters, without, of course, our executive producer, Sister Satana Whitfield, working the ones and twos, making sure StreamYard works correctly, because sometimes when I get on it, it don't work correctly. But we appreciate you, Sister Satana. Thank you so much. Brothers and sisters, every once in a while, in politics, there's a meeting of the minds between the politicians and the artists, the people who make policy and the people who write policy. It's a difference. The people who make policy normally have to have a creative wellspring, if you will, to get things through process. A lot of times when you read dissents or comments from the Supreme Court, a clerk has written that comment. The dissenting comment or whatever, a clerk has written that, not the actual judge. And in that place, they're there to write a very comprehensive understanding for why they agree with something or why they dissented on something. Politics has become the same way. And we have a genuine opportunity here, if we're really going to take some time and invest and look at what the political process is, there is a conundrum right now, and that conundrum is called Donald J. Trump. A lot of people are saying that, of course, he is the downfall of the GOP, and he was the face of the GOP in the midterms, and there's a big discussion going on: is he toast, or is he's going to hang around? A lot of people think he's toast because, of course, Fox News is backing away from him. But I also understand that he has been extremely articulate in making sure that he has a platform. Going through the process of not being on Twitter, he's come up with his own, if you will, platform. He can speak to millions of people at the click of a button. The GOP cannot do that. The other part of it is his donors, the people that put out a lot of money over the last several years, somehow are not dealing with Donald Trump. They are openly saying that we are not going to support this candidate. We will support Ron DeSantis, who's the governor of Florida. If he runs, we're going to give him this money. Openly saying that. But here's the thing I want you to understand about a Donald Trump. Several years ago, I was in New York City to do some TV. It was Fox News Dayside. It was a show for Allah Made Me Funny. I was there with Azhar Usman, and we saw Donald Trump there. And at that time, he's basically campaigning to get the second season for The Apprentice. And so we're all in a green room. We're all in a green room. And this is a guy who, he's a business dude, okay? I mean, he's a business guy. I didn't say he was a good business guy. He's a snake oil salesman. He's an excellent snake oil salesman. But it was interesting because this guy had no opinion about Muslims, anything like that. And we gave him a DVD of the Allah Made Me Funny movie. Put it in his hand. And it was funny that he looked at it and he goes, this is an interesting idea. And at that point, I realized something some years later, that this guy worked clearly in concepts. Politics, and I'm talking about mainstream politics, I'm talking about governmental positioning, the Supreme Court. He is totally oblivious to all of that. He looks at power in terms of concepts. Who has it, who doesn't have it. Who has it now, who will not have it later. It's a really interesting character structure because Donald Trump comes from a family that claims to have a lot of money, but their money is built on the fact that they have to screw people to get the money. And what I mean screw people, I mean generationally screw people. In Washington, D.C., his father was accused of illegal housing tactics to make sure that people couldn't get houses. People that look like me and some of you couldn't get into houses. Unfair housing practices. And they leaned on that for years. And the way that it perpetuated itself is that they did what they do now. They went to the courts, and the courts have to met this thing out, and it takes years. You think of 2-3 years of people not being able to get affordable housing or qualifying for affordable housing, you begin to understand the situation now. Even with this insurrection trial, January 6th, we're talking about when it happened, and we're looking at 2022. It may not even come to fruition before the 2024 elections. Now, what does that mean for us? Because there is a pause in here someplace that I want everybody to understand. The pause is there's a disconnect for what people believe. And metaphorically and possibly physically, there's a civil war coming. We talked about this years ago, a couple years ago, when on a show before the January 6th. I think the name of the show was called Smells Like a Coup to Me. Is that right, Satana? We did a show called Smells Like a Coup to Me. Yes, Roberto said he was a slumlord, his poor white tenants. That's right. He's 100% right. But here's the thing I want you to understand about Donald Trump. He always thinks he's right because he doesn't have a concept of wrong. Let me say it again. He always thinks he's right because he never has a concept of wrong. And that narrative ties into a lot of what people think here in the United States. You see, Trump is the reason why people started going after critical race theory. They started changing the narrative of American history and the history books and education because he dialed into the fact that a lot of Americans, deep down in their hearts, don't want to say they're wrong, don't want to say they've committed crimes, don't want to say they've committed cruelty to other people. Just out headed towards Dallas, there was a teacher in a classroom. Let me frame this for you. A teacher in a classroom tells his students that deep down inside that the white race is superior. It got caught on microphone or whatever, or videotape or whatever they have these days. But he actually said it, and the children asked him, "Are you a racist?" He said, "Deep down, I am, and so are you." And now he got fired. It won't make national news, brothers and sisters, but it should. Why? Because this is a person who's in a position of power to educate young minds. Now, Donald Trump, I'm going to give him credit. And here's the credit that I'm going to give him. So pay attention. Very few people have the ability to engage dead minds. That whole thing of uneducated whites and things like that, he is a master of stirring up dead spirits and dead minds. My good friend Harry Weber once said, and I remember this, he said, "Beware the politician whose bedfellows with the devil." He said, because both of them are in the business of owning souls. And Donald Trump, if you really watch his people, Trump land, the MAGA people, these are people who are soulless folks. Not because they're dead, it's because they can't think. One of the things I think is most interesting is if you ever sit and watch an interview of people who are so Trumpish, if you will, that they ignore all the reality around it. And you have to realize you're just hearing them in a conversation. You're not hearing the conversations they're having with other people. You're not privy to the conversations that, and what we have right now, one with the recession, two with the ongoing war with Ukraine and Russia, three, if you will, with massive layoffs coming off. And when I say massive, I'm talking about Amazon is cutting. Amazon is cutting. Twitter is, Elon Musk firing people. There's they say, is it a come to Jesus moment or is it a come to Donald moment? I don't know. But there's a situation here where there's going to be a pause and it's going to be a reset. And like I said, there's going to be a realignment. And I am advocating for us to be in that space to effectively be a part of that realignment. Mr. Gregory was correct about Political Action Committee and that minority groups have not done a good, because we're always tied in the fact that we look at the other political action committees that have money, that are not, but do they have drive? Do they have narrative? Do they have creativity? Do they really have the ability to force? Listen, we are a nation of protesters. A nation of protesters. So look, I'm going to come back. We're going to take a break. I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. It's Preacher Moss on the ShOUT Show. Hey, babies. Welcome to Radio WCUC, Convenient Urgent Care, home of the smart patient. This is DJ What It Do. You know what time it is. It's the top of the hour, and the request lines are open. You know what you want to hear. I know what you want to hear. Operators are waiting.
I just gotta hear "Don't Get the COVID."
Don't get the COVID. Put your mask back on. The Delta COVID, more contagious than before. Don't get the COVID. Go on and get the vaccine. You know that it can keep you safe, and your people living up in your space. Don't get the COVID. You need to wash your hands. The Delta COVID is more deadly than before. Don't get the COVID. Go on and get your vaccine. You know that it can keep you from dying. Don't leave your family all alone and crying. Don't get the COVID.
We invite you to join our fight against COVID and against misinformation. It's time to listen to the doctors and trust the science.
When I think of people dying that don't have to die, it makes me sad. Now's the time to be sober. Together we can make this thing over. Let's fight the COVID. Convenient urgent care, home of the smart patient.
Okay, so we're back. So what I also need to do is explain to you or refresh some of you on zero sum. We talked about this, about zero sum racism, things like that. But in politics, it's a little bit different. Zero sum is the aspect that for me to win, you have to lose. For you to lose, I have to win. Meaning that if there are two lemonade stands, one over on the east side, one over on the west side. They both have the opportunity to sell lemonade. One lemonade stand sells 10, the other lemonade stand sells 5, but the one that sells 5 goes, the only reason I only sold 5 is because they sold 5 over here. I'm supposed to have those 5, and that should be my 10. The regardlessness, if you will, for people's effort, for people's intellect, for people's creativity, it's kind of where we are today. I'll be the first one to say that I'm not a big Joe Biden fan. He's not really creative. And even more so, brothers and sisters, the election was more so a mandate that we didn't want another 4-year Trump. Okay, let's call that what it is. But it was also the larger story, if you will, is that voters, began to express themselves, moving out of a cocoon, if you will, from COVID and things like that. They began to express themselves, and people began to understand and revalue their ability to have change. The zero-sum politics of Donald Trump was the fact that he knew how to talk to you, particularly, and I have to be careful when I say this, particularly when he understood that people were mentally, spiritually, and emotionally weak. There's a saying that hurt people hurt people. Let me add to that one. Hurt people manipulate hurt people and hurt them more. Hurt people manipulate hurt people and hurt them more. And the way they hurt them is they don't make them feel like they're injured. They make them feel like they're empowered. So the man that takes your house somehow tells you the beauty of living outside in nature. No, fool, you're homeless. The person that takes your car, steals your car, somehow tells you, you know what? I didn't steal your car. I'm giving you an extra chance to exercise every day, walking to work 10 miles this way and 10 miles that way. And you go, yeah, I needed the exercise. That scope of mental deniability in this presidency, going back, brothers and sisters, is something we have to overlook. That we can't overlook. I'm sorry. But you have to investigate. And I think even now, this will be the see, for many of us minorities, we didn't matter until election time. We didn't matter until it became apparent that we couldn't be controlled. That whatever we had gone through in our existence and our presence in the United States, it certainly overwhelmed what they were bringing to us in terms of politics. That politics was local in a lot of regards, but it was also framed a particular way. It was framed in a take it or don't take it type of thing, and we didn't even have a chance to take it because it wasn't offered to us. Trump politics was not for people of color. It was not something that came to our neighborhood and we rallied it. It drew people, but it didn't come to our neighborhood and rally it. So that being the space, we literally sat around, we watched this president for a couple of years. And I think the thing is, we've had enough. We've been had enough. But now the stakes are different. You see, when a white person fires you and you black, it's just par for the course. But when a white person fires a white person, we look. We want to understand what that scope is. And this thing with Donald Trump is not the firing of Donald Trump. Oh, no. This is the firing up of Donald Trump. Because what you have is a personality that's willing to burn it all down if he can't have it. One of the greatest stories of Donald Trump was when he ripped off everybody in Atlantic City Atlantic City has never been the same as it was. They lost billions of dollars on his promises. And the great story from, the Art of the Deal book is basically he owed all this money to people. And he walks in this room with all these people and he owes them money. You know, he says, I have an idea how you can get your money back. And they were like, how? How can we get our money back? He said, you have to give me more money. And they gave it to him. Why? Because the soul is a powerful thing. You know, the soul is a powerful thing. It connects to so many things. And I don't want to get like, meta spiritual, if you will, but it does have a lot to do with how you gravitate to situations. Like I see people, when I was in Hollywood, I'm gonna tell you something. I saw some of the weirdest stuff I thought I would ever see. And you would think that these people are grounded in some regards, but when you step back, what is the nature of great acting? To make me think that you're somebody else. To make me think Denzel Washington is not Macbeth. That Denzel Washington is not Macbeth. It's just Macbeth. Or Lawrence Fishburne is not Othello. He's Othello. Or we're back in 1950s and the 40s. There's a psychosis there. And in that space, brothers and sisters, we call it entertainment, but we give away our sense of reality for 2 hours, 2.5 hours. I'm getting ready to go see Black Panther, Wakanda Forever at some point in time. But I have to make up the idea that I don't know the backstory, that the lead character, the superstar of this story, he passed away. I mean, in the movie he's passed away, but he passed away. And he had a career beyond Black Panther, and he made other movies. But these are the things that we do, and we give away a little bit of reality because we call it entertainment. We need a release, if you will, and I'm not against that. The danger is when the release becomes reality. When a man walks off a stage, off an elevator and says, I'm going to be next president of the United States, I have no experience, I have no endorsements, I have no money, but I'm going to be the president. I don't even know the people I'm representing. I don't deal with them in my real life. I don't even know what a policy is. I know what I want. And give the man credit. He knew what he wanted, and he got it. Now, this is a wrap-up, if you will. Roberto Rashid said something that's important. He said it was a slumlord towards poor whites. Yeah, it was to the point it was poor whites, and blacks never had a chance. Look at the scope of poor whites in the, I want to say, the backdrop of America. Look at the flow of poor whites. When you talk about disruptive activity, racial activity, violence, it comes from poor whites. Rosewood, Greenwood, Black Wall Street, Newark, all these places, it comes from these people. And we say, why are they so impressionable? Because they can look across the way and say, old Black Joe is poor as me. What separates that white person from old Black Joe? His imagination. See, old Black Joe has a soul. To do what they do, they have no soul. And now it's leaked into our politics, and they found a politician that they can identify with. Doesn't have a problem abusing women. Doesn't have a problem stealing. Doesn't have a problem lying. Doesn't have a problem manipulating and getting power because they see that in him. Donald Trump didn't have power when he went out to be president in 2016. And if you ever watch the tape, when the results come in, he's surprised that he beat Hillary Clinton. So what's my point? The zero-sum politics of Donald Trump is this. If you don't pay attention to the past, to the history of the past, you're going to repeat it in the future. The worst thing we can do is to believe that this man is toast, that he doesn't have a shot. Because in saying that, he's going to rally the troops for everybody around the United States and the world in some regards that felt like they were counted out. And he's going to play that song. He's going to play it well. I'm counted out. I don't have any money. They're all against me. You know what he sounds like? Damn. Sound like a black man. So let's be careful, brothers and sisters, and don't buy into the zero-sum politics of Donald Trump. Let's speak up. Let's get our political action committees together, and let's realign this thing while we have a chance. I'm Preacher Mars. This is ShOUT Show. Have a blessed evening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.